In this video, Andrew Bolt and Daisy Cousins are commenting on the recent student climate strike, and they hit on something I don't think gets nearly enough attention in the broader thinking that we do about progressivist politics since the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s. They're talking about the real motivations behind this student strike. I'll just play it.
On the other hand, why did so many children on the climate strike seem so happy when they're actually carrying signs saying they'd be killed by global warming, and they've got big smiles on their faces? Explain that.
Yes, it's a particularly jarring image, isn't it? You see those children with these happy smiles on their faces, with these banners saying, you know, you'll die of old age, we'll die of climate change. It's sort of sinister. I mean, look, perhaps they were just posing for the camera, perhaps they're being cautiously optimistic. But the thing is, Andrew, what we must remember here is that a large chunk of these kids would most definitely be there so they could get a day off school.
That's right. Getting a day off school. Now, of course, you know, these commentators are not the only ones to point out that, well, several things. Firstly, this climate strike could have been held on the weekend. Somebody said 9 o'clock Saturday morning, which is not only imposing on a nice fun day for the children on a Saturday, but 9 o'clock yet. They'd have to get out of bed, have to set their alarms, you know, and about the climate strike. Yeah, as if. I grew up in the 1960s, the protest era that changed the world, you know, for the better, with all this feminism and stopping the war and all the rest of it. And in the 1960s, protesting was just fun. It was really fun. So hang any really serious thought about anything. Oh, we said a lot of silly things back then, but we got a few right-wingers going. And the fact is that climate change, gay marriage, whatever you think of, is basically a pretext for people to basically just have fun winding people up. All these left progressivists are doing is finding wedge issues to realise themselves, which is what I keep repeating time and again in these videos. And these are not serious issues. They're only a pretext for people to work out their existential problems, their problems working out a rationale for their existence and the meaning of life. And that is not a good reason to have gay marriage, carbon taxes and all the rest. I can circumvent the whole climate change ideology with two little words: go nuclear. That is all you have to do to cut down fossil fuel emissions, if that's really a problem, which I seriously doubt that it is, at least from the point of view of the extinction of life on Earth. And I, incidentally, when I look at greenie politics, I'm moving towards a view that it won't be long before greenies are starting to talk about the extinction of the human race as a good thing. In fact, ever since greenism started up, the underlying ethos has been that humans are some sort of plague on the world. The fewer humans we have, the better. Over the years, there's been a political movement called zero population growth, which was all about cutting back on the human population. But now, I think, if you look closely, you'll find a trend of thought in greenism that's possibly more along the lines of actually getting rid of the of humans, getting rid of the human race. I've been saying forever that left-wing politics is genocidal. Many years ago, people don't talk about it so much these days, but they used to refer to the culture of death when you think of the popularity of ideas such as abortion, promoting homosexuality, which cannot give rise to life, euthanasia, and just the various genocidal the consequences of a lot of leftist philosophy in general, you'd have to think there's almost some conspiracy out there to actually exterminate the human race. And while on the subject of protest as being all very light-hearted and, politics is entertainment, I also, on a completely different subject, I observe, I'm not the first person to sort of observe this, but whenever pro-abortion types win a victory in their, political quest, it's always accompanied by sort of jumping up and down with glee, champagne glasses clinking, shrieking with joy that now we can murder babies, And I think, what is this? I mean, they mightn't hang their heads in shame, but, perhaps they could hang their heads in sorrow, maybe, would you say? And one thing I took from Greta Thunberg's rant at the United Nations, which was fairly fact-free and just a bunch of rhetorical assertions, was, "You've stolen my childhood." And I thought, what? You've had a childhood. You have a childhood. You're living in one of the best countries in the world in terms of its standard of living and economic prosperity. And you're 16. You've pretty much had your childhood. I mean, there are people who think that a 16-year-old like her is not actually a child anymore. And of course, another point is the assertion that you governments of this world are doing nothing about climate change. That's not even factually correct. Much and all as I think that climate change is essentially a load of codswallop, the governments of this world are actually doing quite a lot in pursuance of trying to change the world's climate, wrong-headed though they may be. You simply cannot assert that they're not doing anything to address climate change. And as other people have noted, and I certainly concur, the country that's really pumping out the carbon is China. Countries the like of China and India. They're two of the biggest emitters of evil carbon, especially China in its quest for modernisation and industrialisation. They're pumping out immeasurably greater amounts of carbon than the likes of a country like Australia and most other countries. And I suggest to Greta Thunberg and Tim Flannery and people of his ilk, please go to where all the action is. China's the one that's emitting all this carbon. I suggest you go over there and lecture them, because they're the big emitters. March down the street, severely criticise the Chinese government and see how far that gets you. That's all for now.